Michael Foucault's concept of space, power, and knowledge is not a single essay but rather a set of ideas developed across his key works, especially The Discipline and Power that came out in the year 1975, The Birth of Clinic 1963, and The Archaeology of Knowledge 1969. These ideas together reveal how space, power, and knowledge is interconnected in the organization of a modern society. For Michael Foucault, space is never neutral. It is always shaped and structured by power relations and systems of knowledge. In other words, the way space is organized from cities and schools to hospitals and prisons reflects and enforces specific forms of power and ways of knowing. He argues that this means that power operates not only through laws or repression but through spatial arrangements of bodies, institutions, and visibility. The first concept is power or knowledge as the central idea. Foucault's starting point is that power and knowledge are inseparable. Knowledge does not simply describe reality, it creates categories, for example, normal and abnormal, sane and insane, healthy and sick, criminal and obedient, etc. Power enforces and legitimizes those categories through social institutions and spatial arrangements. Thus, power produces knowledge and knowledge sustains power. He calls this relationship power-knowledge one of his most important theoretical contribution to the educational field. The second concept is space as tool of discipline. In Discipline and Punishment, Foucault shows how modern power operates through spatial organization, what he calls as disciplinary space. For example, the modern institutions like schools, prisons, factories, hospitals partition and control space to regulate people. Individuals are assigned to specific locations, times, and roles. This allows for surveillance, classification, and correction of behavior. For example, the prison and the panopticon. Foucault uses Jeremy Bentham's panopticon design, a circular prison where inmates are constantly visible to a central observer, as a metaphor of modern society. Here, prisoners can be seen at all time but cannot see the observers. Because they might be watched, they begin to discipline themselves. Thus, the space becomes a mechanism of control. Visibility creates self-regulation. The third concept is from repression power to disciplinary power. Earlier societies exercised sovereign power that was visible, dramatic, and based on punishment. For example, public execution. But the modern societies, however, shifted to disciplinary power, that is, power that works quietly through organizations, observation, and normalization. It uses space, arranging classrooms, hospitals, and barricades to make people more effective and obedient and protective. Space thus becomes an architect of control. The fourth concept is the birth of clinic, that is, knowledge produces spatial order. In The Birth of the Clinic that came out in the year 1963, Foucault examines how medical knowledge produces spatial hierarchies. The hospitals and clinics are organized to create new forms of medical observations, that is, the clinical gaze. Patients become objects of knowledge, their bodies are examined, categorized, and written about. The spatial layout, that is, the wards, examination room, operation theater, is designed to make bodies visible and analyzable. This is how knowledge and space co-produce power. Knowledge demands more certain spatial order to see, record, and compare. Space reinforces the authority of those who possess knowledge, like doctors, scientists, or the state officials. The fifth concept is the power, space, and surveillance in everyday life. Foucault argues that modern societies generalize the logic of the panopticon into everyday spaces. For example, the school monitor attendance and discipline, office track productivity, cities are mapped, zoned, and policed. Every home and personal spaces are influenced by social norms of visibility and order. This is what Foucault calls as biopower. Biopower is the management of population through subtle spatial and institutional mechanism that regulate life itself from birth, health, sexuality, and movement. The next concept is knowledge and spatial exclusion. In Order of Things and Matters of Civilization, Foucault explores how space is used to operate and execute. The insane are confined in asylums. The sick are isolated in the hospitals. The criminal is locked in prison. These spatial divisions are justified through scientific knowledge, that is, through psychiatry, criminology, and medicine. The space enforces the boundaries of normal and dividend power produced through knowledge and execution. Space is dynamic and productive. For Foucault, space is both a medium of control and a field of resistance. Thank you.